What's poppin', Peace Posse? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. The most peaceful place on the internet, because the 11th Street Kids are back, baby. James Gunn has done it yet again and has given us another comic book banger in the form of this Peacemaker Season 2 premiere. And to celebrate the occasion, we're going to break down all the Easter eggs and details that you may have missed in this episode. So let's just jump right into this thing, because peacemaking waits for no man, or toxically masculine woman, or eagle. Peacemaker Season 2 starts off with a recap of the events of the first season. A voiceover of Peacemaker specifically begins this recap with the words, "Previously in the DCU," showing the audience from the jump that the events of Peacemaker Season 1 are mostly canon to this new DCU cinematic universe that started with projects like 2024's Creature Commando series, as well as 2025's Superman. Both projects that we covered here on Heavy Spoilers. And towards the end of the last season, Leota Adebayo, played by the incredibly talented, Oscar-nominated, Grammy Award-winning Danielle Brooks, calls her mother, Amanda Waller, to ask if she could send in the Justice League to help her division of Task Force X in taking down an invasion of the Butterfly Body Snatchers. The 11th Street Kids would end up saving the day without them, with the DCEU Justice League showing up a few minutes too late. However, in this recap, we hear Adebayo ask Waller for help from the Justice Gang instead of the Justice League, leading to the heroes Mr. Terrific, Superman, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Supergirl showing up instead of Superman, Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman, and the ghost of Ray Fisher Cyborg. And another element that has changed between universes is how this recap shows a nauseous Peacemaker saying that he puked on Guy Gardner one time, and that bull-headed puke freak liked it. Peacemaker never actually says this in the Season 1 finale, but is immediately told to shut up by Harcourt. So yeah, just in case some of you out there felt like James Gunn was gaslighting the hell out of us, just know that we are in a whole new timeline now. And I love how we're probably going to be playing more Spot the Difference throughout this season, because it kind of feels like the Mandela effect in a weird way. Just like when the 11th Street Kids were arguing about the pronunciation of the Berenstain Bears in Season 1. And even though I said Berenstain, I still say Berenstein on my free time, because it is the Berenstein Bears. I don't care about what anyone says. It's Berenstein. And if you disagree with me, I'm going to call up the Berenstein Titans on your ass. They found Papa Bear on the Berensteins list on Berenstein Island. Not looking too good. But yeah, after this recap, episode 1, titled The Ties That Grind, opens with Peacemaker's right-hand bird, Eagly, waking his ass up. And much like how dogs get antsy to go out on walks, eagles apparently get antsy to go out on flights. However, since it is currently snowing outside of Peacemaker's home in Evergreen, Washington, a town that made its first appearance in the pages of Green Lantern number 53 from 1967, Peacemaker has to improvise. But hey, you can make your first fresh appearance at your next outing by heading to the Heavy Spoilers merch store to pick up one of our many awesomely designed tees. We've got dope new shirts inspired by only the hottest properties out right now, like our new Prey to None shirt inspired by Predator, our Perfect Organism shirt inspired by the Alien franchise, or even our new 2:17 AM shirt inspired by the critically acclaimed Weapons movie. We've got all sorts of fun designs over at that website, and we are constantly making more, so check out our extensive collection of nerdy merch over at the Heavy Spoilers merch store today. But yeah, instead of taking Eagly to the actual outside for fresh air, he takes Eagly to the extra-dimensional outside by letting Eagly roam free in his fancy-schmancy quantum unfolding storage area. A neat gift that his father gave to Chris on his deathbed, along with all of his Peacemaker tech. Just kidding, Chris stole the door to the quantum unfolding storage area from his dad after he shot him in the face, something Arnold Schwarzenegger struggled to do in Terminator 2. Proving that Peacemaker is superior to the T-1000. But Peacemaker's dad, Augie, was a big ol' racist, so he didn't deserve a house with Monsters, Inc. doors. Those are only for good boys and girls, not for white dragons. But yeah, Eagly has himself a metaphorical ball flying around, while Chris attempts to greet his extra-dimensional alien neighbor. And as far as I can tell, this alien species has not been established at all in DC Comics lore, and is only identified in the credits as kyphotic alien played by an actor Dorian Kinji. If you ever wondered what the DK on Donkey Kong's ties stood for, it's Dorian Kinji, by the way. You're welcome. The credits also reveal that this kyphotic alien was brought to life through the help of 2 other puppeteers, which is super dope. I love when productions break out the puppeteers to do some practical effects and whatnot. I'm looking at you, Babu Frick. You're my son. You are my Star Wars son. But unfortunately for Christopher, the alien would ignore his friendly neighborly greeting, leading Chris to calling him a crypt keeper looking bitch, a reference to the corpse host from the old Tales from the Crypt TV series, a character that was also the result of puppeteering, much like this alien. After this, Chris looks up to the ceiling for his feathered friend, but can't seem to find him. And when we get a shot of the ceiling, we get a brief look at the sharp ceiling apparatus that would ultimately serve as the means of Peacemaker's death at the hands of Peacemaker by the end of the episode. It's kind of crazy that we now have 3 versions of John Cena's Peacemaker at this point. Like, that's gotta be some type of comic book media record for live action or something. But anyways, when Chris heads to find Eagly, we can see that he's wearing a shirt for the Welsh metal band Tiger Tails before he runs into Eagly clawing at another neighbor's door. Chris immediately notices that this door is next to another foreign batch of 10 Peacemaker helmets that Chris has never seen before, which is clear as they're designed completely differently than his dead father's old batch from season 1. But what's particularly interesting about Eagly scratching at this door is that it sort of implies to me anyway that Eagly is wanting to go back to a place that he's already familiar with. Almost like this Eagly could possibly be native to this new dimension. We could be looking at a scenario where both of these Peacemakers let their Eaglies fly in this quantum unfolding storage area before they each end up taking the wrong Eagly back to their dimension. So for all we know, they could each be chilling with each other's Eagly without even knowing. But that's just a theory. But anyways, after putting in the same passcode that he uses to access the pocket dimension, Chris enters the living room of the home of his father from an alternate universe. And this version of Augie seems to be doing a lot better for himself, as we can see by his wall of awards and achievements. A wall that also features the helmet of the white dragon at the center. And among these awards and achievements is the Evergreen Beacon of Bravery Award, given to a team called the Top Trio, who we learn is composed of the 3 Smith men, Augie and his 2 sons, Chris and Keith. And apparently the 3 of them were also given the key to the city of Evergreen, a city that has the seal of the city engraved at the base. This seal is slightly different from the seal that we see in the previous DCEU continuity, but pretty much only at the bottom of the seal. Because instead of just saying Washington at the bottom of the seal like we see in this episode, the old seal had the words Charlton County, Washington instead. With Charlton, of course, being a reference to the Charlton Comics, the original publisher of Peacemaker's first appearance in 1966's Fightin' 5 number 40. And under this, we have an article from the Evergreen Sentinel detailing one of the Top Trio's major victories. I feel like the name Evergreen Sentinel could be a slight nod to the DC Comics hero Green Lantern, as Green Lantern has also spent some time in the town of Evergreen as well, and he is an Evergreen Sentinel. And the photo that that article uses features a picture of Augie Smith in his white dragon costume in the middle of Chris and Keith, with Keith wearing a mysterious red and blue costume that we get to see a little bit more clearly when the entire cast is dancing in the opening sequence. Now, I'm not exactly sure who the superhero could be, but given his costume and this family's ties to the city of Evergreen, I'm willing to guess that Keith Smith could be playing the superhero known as the Comet. Introduced in the pages of the Comet number 1 from 1991, the Comet is an aspiring baseball player named Rob Connors who gains the power to fly and shoot energy out of his body after getting shocked by a radio tower. But much like in the case of DCU White Dragon, it seems like James Gunn may have switched out Rob Connors' name for a member of the Smith family. But that has yet to be seen, to be honest. I could be completely wrong. I only assume that he could be the Comet because Evergreen, Washington is where the Comet originally hails from, so it seems like a safe guess to me. But before Chris could get a better look around the house, he is greeted by the horrifying sight of his dead racist dad, played by the great Robert Patrick, causing Chris to make peace in his pants as he runs back inside of the quantum storage area. Then we get an all-new Peacemaker intro sequence, set to the song Oh Lord by the band Foxy Shazam, a personal favorite band of director James Gunn's. And while the main cast of the season does a little choreographed jig, one of the most notable and surprising returns to this season comes in the form of actor Michael Rooker, whose involvement James Gunn has been teasing for quite some time now. Michael Rooker's inclusion in this show might be somewhat surprising for some, considering how we saw Michael Rooker's Savant die at the beginning of 2021's The Suicide Squad at the hands of Argus. But this time around, instead of playing Savant, Michael Rooker is playing the big game hunter known as Red Saint Wild, a seemingly new character built specifically for the series and apparently a nemesis for our Eagly friend Eagly. This hunter really wants that bird dead this season, apparently. James Gunn will take any opportunity to include his good friend Michael Rooker in his projects, with Rooker recently playing Superman Robot number 5 in the recent Superman movie, as well as the white supremacist Sam Fitzgibbon in Creature Commandos. And after this intro, we jump 6 months into the future to reunite with Adebayo as she picks up Peacemaker for his big interview while jamming out in her car to Don't You Ever Leave Me by Hanoi Rocks, the band that Team Peacemaker got their 11th Street Kids name from after bonding over the band in Season 1, Episode 5. Don't You Ever Leave Me is a fitting song title considering that Adebayo is dealing with a bit of trouble at home with her wife Kia, with the two living separately from each other in response to Adebayo's dangerous new life as a badass. Like, it is so interesting to see how much this character has grown since Season 1, because at the beginning of Season 1, she was so afraid of even shooting a gun. Now Adebayo is like, man, if my wife ain't about this hood life, I don't need that chick no more. Like, I feel like she's growing to become more and more like her mother, which would be kind of crazy if she sort of, like, inherits her job over at Argus by the, like, end of everything. I don't know. Could happen. But at least Homegirl is still rocking that wedding ring as she drives Peacemaker, so at least she still loves Kia despite being insanely frustrated with her. Adebayo then hypes Peacemaker up for his interview as she drops him off, reminding him that he saved the world from an alien invasion of body-snatching butterflies. And as Chris gets out of the car, we can see that one of these bodyguards at the door is sitting right under a piece of butterfly graffiti, which is fittingly funny. Chris then heads towards the doors of the abandoned Crank Toys facility before the doors swing open to reveal a crying woman in a rabbit costume. This woman is actually Jaina Hudson, also known as the White Rabbit, an Alice in Wonderland themed Batman villain who first appeared in the pages of 2011's Batman The Dark Knight #1. She is definitely not the first White Rabbit in comics, as Spider-Man also has a White Rabbit in his Rogues Gallery, who is also heavily Alice in Wonderland themed over at Marvel Comics. Chris then meets up with 3 central characters in James Gunn's new Superman movie, as well as the DCU as a whole. Kendra Saunders' Hawkgirl, played once again by the incredibly hot Madam Web victim Isabella Merced, Guy Gardner Green Lantern, played by the hilarious Nathan Fillion, and Maxwell Lord, financier of the Justice Gang, played by the great Sean Gunn. Pedro Pascal, of course, played the character Maxwell Lord in Wonder Woman 1984 in the former DCEU, but Sean Gunn is playing a far different take on the character this time around. As the 3 of them berate Peacemaker and judge him for his affinity for murder behind a glass, in front of said glass, we can see an empty rack for all ages comics. A slight nod towards DC Comics as a whole and how Peacemaker himself used to be an all ages comic book character. Emphasis on used to be, because Peacemaker's little not a hero-gasm that he throws in his dead dad's house is far from being an all ages affair. So many wieners and bazooma-booms in that living room that I was not prepared for. But the bazooma-booms were nice, I've gotta say. And I love how Guy Gardner calls out Hawkgirl for her obsessive love for popcorn as they conduct the interview. Because birds love eating popcorn, man. Like, drop some popcorn in a parking lot in the summer and the pigeons will have themselves a party. And then poop on your car because pigeons are little flying assholes. I'm sorry, okay? A pigeon shat on me while I was on a date one time and I'm still not over it. My date laughed at me. But she was gonna laugh at me anyway, so I don't know why I'm even complaining. Peacemaker then gets disrespected by the Justice Gang a little bit more before he takes off in a huff. Then we transition to Amelia Harcourt, played by the talented Jennifer Holland, as she is also being assessed, this time by a government psychologist. And when the psychologist diagnoses Harcourt with extreme toxic masculinity, she hilariously reacts by calling him the big British C word. And in response, the therapist goes to write in his notebook. And when he does, he moves his head to reveal a book on anger on his shelf behind him. An excellent piece of hilarious cinematography. And as Harcourt objects to this assessment, she brings up how she served her country. Harcourt's 18-year career as a government agent began when she joined the CIA after high school. This is before Harcourt would join the Department of Extranormal Operations, or DEO, which is a fictional US government agency that tracks individuals around the world that have superhuman abilities introduced in the pages of 1998's Batman number 550. Then, with her CIA and DEO experience under her belt, Harcourt would then join Argus, where she would meet Amanda Waller. Waller blackballing Harcourt from being able to work as a government agent with a license to punch people is another element that is majorly different in this new DCU cinematic universe. Because in the previous DCEU universe, we see that Harcourt is still very much employed by Amanda Waller over at Argus. In Black Adam, we see her escort Black Adam to a top secret subaquatic prison before recruiting Shazam to the Justice Society at the end of Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And after her interview, Harcourt punches her dashboard over and over again like Lex Luthor was screaming 1A in her ears before heading home. She's greeted by a Peacemaker who tells her that her car was long overdue for a beating, specifically for playing music from the Spin Doctors and 30 Seconds to Mars. A hilarious line and post-credit scene considering director James Gunn's public disdain for 30 Seconds to Mars vocalist and cult leader Jared Leto, star of the upcoming movie Pixels 2, Tron Ares. And when they head inside of her apartment, we learn that Harcourt lives in apartment 203 at 715 Adams Street in Evergreen, Washington, along with the fact that Harcourt has a delinquent $386.90 water bill and a $592.26 electric bill. Peacemaker then tries to talk to her about a night that the two of them shared together while drunk, but Harcourt quickly dismisses his feelings for her. And because all Peacemaker is looking for is genuine love, his day of rejections leads him to putting a bunch of drugs in his body and hosting an impromptu Bible study with a large crowd of local strangers of various body types. It was a Bible study and nothing more. I will hear nothing of it. Not on my YouTube.com. And this is all while Guest List by Hardcore Superstar blasts in the background. But not far from Peacemaker's home is his old buddy John Economos, played once again by the hilarious Steve Agee. But speaking of hilarity, John gets a call from the equally hilarious Adrian Chase, aka Vigilante, played by Freddie Stroma. Vigilante asks John to quiz him on a couple of owl facts and fails miserably before John gets a call from Argus agent Sasha Bordeaux, played by actress and model Sol Rodriguez. Sasha orders John to go check out some weird energy readings coming from Peacemaker's house. Energy readings that Argus recorded 6 months prior in January when Peacemaker accidentally found his way to that other universe. Sasha goes to report this glitch to her superior, General Rick Flag Sr., played by actor Frank Grillo. And since the events of the TV series Creature Commandos, Flag has apparently dyed his hair black and has become the director of Argus, taking over the role from Amanda Waller. And when Sasha walks into his office, he is watching news anchor Clevis Thornwaite on Sphere News talking about the rise of public anxiety concerning mutants, something that the DCU has in common with the MCU at this current time. And much like Rick Flag Sr., we last saw Thornwaite and Sphere News make appearances in 2025's Superman movie, where he's seen interviewing Peacemaker and Lex Luthor. Sphere News also seems to be a nod towards the Daily Planet, as there is a giant sphere on top of that building. Apparently, there has been a recent uptick of breakouts at metahuman prison facilities like Argus and Gotham City's Arkham Asylum, leading people to feel progressively more unsafe. A public perception that Rick Flag Sr. cannot seem to stand. Rick also can't stand Peacemaker himself, especially after an unhinged Peacemaker killed his son Rick Flag Jr. during the events of The Suicide Squad. So, using his new power as director of Argus, Flag has been keeping a close eye on Peacemaker's house just so he can arrest his ass as soon as Peacemaker acts up. Meanwhile, an intoxicated Peacemaker makes his way back to the alternate reality where he takes a better look at alternate Augie's shelf of accomplishments. There he sees a newspaper headline that mentions how the top trio defeated the Batman villain known as the Rainbow Creature, who made their first appearance in 1960's Batman number 134. The Rainbow Creature had the ability to shoot fire and frost, as well as disintegrate or flatten people, turning into a different color when using each of these powers. So he'll turn red when using fire, blue for ice, yellow for disintegration, and green for turning people into Flat Stanley. And next to that article is another article detailing the top trio's defeat of the super intelligent albino gorilla Ultra Humanite, Superman's very first recurring villain who debuted in the pages of 1939's Action Comics number 13. Ultra Humanite wasn't always a gorilla, but a mad genius who inserted his mind into a genetically modified gorilla so that he could have a new body that could accommodate his constantly expanding mind. And it's a mind that has the ability to hypnotize people as well as do some telepathy and telekinesis, which is a bonus when you're also fighting superheroes with the strength and endurance of a big-ass gorilla. Ultra Humanite is for sure one gorilla that Clayton from Tarzan does not want to mess with, I'll tell you that. Peacemaker then heads outside just as his brother Keith rolls up to the house in his car, with Keith being played by actor David Denman, who worked with James Gunn on 2019's Brightburn. Chris then has a rather traumatizing drink with the two family members that he killed in his reality as they talk about their interactions with fifth-dimensional imps. A shout out to characters Batmite and Mr. Yaspitlik. Economos mentions having encountered Batmite in Peacemaker Season 1.
I'd rather be with fucking Batmite than you.
Who's Batmite?
The 2-foot-tall interdimensional imp who stands Batman. I'd rather be with him.
And after reminiscing about their times together, both Augie and Keith tell Chris that they love him, something that Chris probably has never heard them say in his own real life. So Peacemaker has himself a nice cry about that before heading to the bedroom of his much better off alternate self. And as Chris looks around this bedroom, we can see a number of posters for various rock bands. The first poster that we see is for the fictional album Scalawags by the band Scorpions with a Z, a parody of the album cover for the 1988 album Savage Amusement by the real-world band The Scorpions with an S. And this is followed by a poster for the band The Cruel Interventions, a parody of the real-life band The Cruel Intentions. The Cruel Intentions song Jawbreaker was featured in episode 4 of Peacemaker Season 1 when Vigilante is serving time in prison. And there's also a Hanoi Rocks poster, with rocks spelled with 2 X's instead of the regular way, as well as a poster for DEAF Def Leppard's Pour Some Honey on Me, an alternate universe take on Def Leppard's 1987 song Pour Some Sugar on Me. And as Peacemaker looks through the family photos in the bedroom, the one that catches his eye is one of him and Harcourt, who appears to be Peacemaker's ex in this world for some reason. But before Peacemaker can process this, he's greeted by Peacemaker himself, pointing a desert eagle to the back of his head. And not only is this Peacemaker's helmet design different like I mentioned before, but the dove logo at the center of his chest is pointed the opposite way, flying upwards rather than flying downwards, a symbolic way to illustrate the trajectory of both of their personal lives. But unfortunately for this alternate Peacemaker, that life would quickly come to an end after a tussle with Chris leads him to getting impaled by a sharp piece of technology on the ceiling of the quantum unfolding storage area before outrage by Sister Sin plays during the credits. But yeah, that is it for this breakdown of episode 1 of season 2 of Peacemaker. And I've got to say, this show is shaping up to be as incredible as the first season. I love Peacemaker so much, and James Gunn truly feels like he's having fun while making this series. I mean, it looks like he's having fun in every series and movie that he makes, but this series feels like it's super close to his heart, and you can tell by the way that it's come out. And I love the show so much, and I cannot wait to see how it progresses. But you guys can follow me at Mastertainment on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, you can follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button and maybe even hitting that like button if you guys enjoyed this video. But like always, I've been MT, you guys have been amazing, and I'll catch you guys later.